The massive alien ships dropped out of hyperspace like falling stars. 200 vessels, each one the size of a city, formed a perfect line above Earth. Their hulls gleamed silver and blue under the sun's light. Inside the biggest ship, Admiral Zexathara looked at the blue planet through the viewing screen and felt disappointed. "This is it?" he asked his second-in-command. "This is the famous Earth?" Commander Veltar checked her scanner readings again. "Yes, Admiral. No energy shields around the planet, no orbital weapons, no space stations. Their most advanced technology seems to be simple rockets that barely leave their atmosphere." Admiral Zexathara laughed. The sound came out as a crystal chime from his throat. His people, the crystalline Dominion, had been conquering worlds for 1,000 years. Earth looked like it would be the easiest victory yet. "How many beings live down there?" he asked. "About 8 billion, Admiral. They call themselves humans. They seem to live mostly on land, though they have primitive boats on their water." The Admiral nodded. 8 billion was a good number. That meant plenty of workers for the mining colonies. The humans looked strong enough to dig in the asteroid fields. Their planet had good resources too: water, metals, and forests that could be harvested. "Open a communication channel to their planet," Admiral Zexathara ordered. "Let's get this over with quickly." The communication officer pressed several buttons. "Channel open, Admiral." Admiral Zexathara straightened his tall, crystal-like body and spoke in his most commanding voice. "Humans of Earth, I am Admiral Zexathara of the Galactic Hegemony. Your planet is now under our control. You have 1 hour to surrender completely. Any resistance will result in the destruction of your major cities. This is your only warning." The bridge fell silent. Everyone waited for the usual response: fear, panic, desperate pleas for mercy. That's how it always went with primitive species. Instead, a calm female voice replied. "This is Dr. Sarah Chen, Director of the Terra Defense Initiative. Admiral, you and your fleet have exactly 3 hours to leave our solar system. This is your only warning." The alien bridge erupted in what sounded like musical laughter. Admiral Zexathara was so amused he had to sit down. Did she just threaten us?" Commander Veltar was laughing so hard her crystal body was glowing. "Admiral, should we broadcast this? The whole galaxy would find it hilarious." "Yes, do it," Admiral Zexathara said, wiping tears from his multifaceted eyes. "Send this conversation to every world in the hegemony. Everyone needs to hear this." Within minutes, the exchange was playing on screens across 12 different star systems. Billions of alien citizens watched the primitive humans threaten the mighty galactic hegemony. Social media platforms exploded with jokes and memes. The humans were instantly famous across the galaxy as the most foolishly brave species anyone had ever encountered. On the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Zexathara was still chuckling. "Dr. Chen, let me explain something to you. We have 200 warships above your planet. Each one carries enough firepower to destroy your largest cities. We have conquered 47 worlds. We have never been defeated. Now, I'll ask again. Do you surrender?" Dr. Chen's voice came back just as calm as before. "Admiral, let me explain something to you. You have 3 hours. I suggest you use them wisely." The laughter on the bridge died down. Admiral Zexathara felt a tiny flicker of annoyance. These humans were more stubborn than most. "Very well. If you insist on a demonstration." He turned to his weapons officer. "Target their largest ocean. Fire 1 destroyer beam. Let's show them what happens to worlds that don't cooperate." The weapons officer hesitated. "Admiral, are you sure? A destroyer beam in an ocean could cause massive waves. It might kill millions of them." "That's the point," Admiral Zexathara said coldly. "They need to understand their place." The destroyer beam charged up with a high whining sound. The massive weapon on the bottom of the flagship began to glow white-hot. Energy readings spiked across all the monitors. Firing now, the weapons, officer announced. A beam of pure energy lanced down from the ship. It was bright enough to be seen from space, hot enough to vaporize anything it touched. The beam struck the Pacific Ocean with the force of 100 nuclear bombs, and then something impossible happened. The beam simply disappeared, not absorbed, not deflected, not scattered. It hit the water and vanished completely, as if it had never existed at all. Admiral Zexathera stared at his screens. What just happened? I don't know, Admiral, the weapons officer stammered. The beam fired correctly. All systems show normal operation. But there's no explosion, no energy, signature, nothing. Fire again, Admiral Zexathera ordered. Full power this time. The second beam was twice as strong as the first. It lit up half the Pacific Ocean as it struck the water. Again, it simply vanished without a trace. Commander Veltar was frantically checking her instruments. Admiral, this is impossible. Our weapons don't just stop working. There's nothing on this planet that should be able to absorb that much energy. Dr. Chen's voice came over the communication system again. Admiral, you now have 2 hours and 57 minutes remaining. I recommend you start moving your ships to a safe distance. A safe distance from what? Admiral Zexathera shouted. You're primitives. You have no weapons that can threaten us. Perhaps, Dr. Chen replied. But you might want to ask yourself a question, Admiral. If our planet is so primitive, how did we just make your most powerful weapons completely useless? The bridge fell silent. Admiral Zexathera looked at his officers, and for the first time in his long military career, he saw uncertainty in their eyes. Sir, the scanner operator said quietly, I'm reading some strange energy patterns from the ocean where we fired. It's almost like something down there is actively absorbing our weapons. Admiral Zexathera felt a cold chill run through his crystal body. He looked down at Earth's blue oceans, which suddenly didn't look quite so peaceful anymore. Dr. Chen, he said carefully, what exactly are you people? Her reply was soft, but it carried clearly across the communication channel. Admiral, you're about to find out. 2 hours and 55 minutes remaining. The alien fleet hung in space above Earth, and for the first time since they had arrived, Admiral Zexathera began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, they had made a terrible mistake. Admiral Zexathera ordered his fleet to spread out and prepare for full attack. 200 alien warships moved into battle formation above Earth. Each captain was ready to fire everything they had at the stubborn planet below. All ships report. Ready, Admiral, Commander Veltar announced. We can glass this entire planet in 10 minutes. But Admiral Zexathera was staring at his screens with growing worry. Something was wrong with the Pacific Ocean. The water was moving in ways that made no sense. Scanner operator, what are you reading from that ocean? He demanded. The young officer at the scanner station looked confused. Sir, the water appears to be draining, but not naturally. It's moving in perfect spirals like it's being controlled. Through the viewing screen, Admiral Zexathera watched in amazement as the Pacific Ocean began to empty. The water didn't splash or crash. Instead, it moved in smooth, impossible patterns. Massive whirlpools formed, but they spun too perfectly. The water flowed in directions that ignored gravity and physics. This isn't natural, Commander Veltar whispered. Water doesn't behave like this. Within minutes, billions of gallons of seawater had disappeared. Where the Pacific Ocean had been, massive structures were rising from what should have been the ocean floor. But these weren't ancient ruins or natural formations. They were gleaming metal and crystal constructions that dwarfed the largest alien. Ships, towers that reached toward space, platforms the size of entire cities. And beneath them, Admiral Zexathera could see that the ocean floor itself was artificial. Those aren't natural formations, the scanner operator said in a shaking voice. Sir, those are docking bays. Massive docking bays that go deeper than our scanners can reach. As if responding to his words, ships began to rise from the hidden depths. Not small vessels or primitive rockets, but warships that made the hegemony. Fleet looked like toys. Each one was 3 times larger than Admiral Zexathera's flagship. Their hulls were made of some dark material that seemed to bend light around it. "How many ships are coming up?" Admiral Zexathera asked, his voice barely a whisper. The scanner operator was frantically working his controls. "Sir, I'm reading... This can't be right. My scanners show thousands. No, tens of thousands. Wait." His face went pale. "Admiral, my readings show over 1 million ships rising from those bays." The alien bridge fell completely silent. Through the viewing screen, they could see the human fleet emerging like a dark tide. The ships moved with perfect coordination, forming patterns that were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Dr. Chen's voice came over the communication system. Again. "Admiral, you seem confused. Perhaps we should clear up a misunderstanding about human history." The human ships continued rising. Admiral Zexathara realized that each one was not just larger than his vessels, but also more advanced. Their hulls showed no seams or joints. They moved without any visible engines, and there were so many of them that they blocked out the sun over half the Pacific. "You see, Admiral," Dr. Chen continued, "your intelligence about Earth was wrong. Humans didn't evolve on the surface of this planet. We evolved in its oceans. What you see on land, our cities, our farms, our primitive technology, that's just where we keep our pets and grow our food." More ships kept rising. The ocean bed revealed itself to be layer after layer of hidden construction, docking bays that went down for miles, manufacturing facilities the size of mountains, cities that had been hidden beneath the waves for who knew how long. "The surface of Earth is like a garden to us," Dr. Chen explained. "A nice place to relax and grow things. Our real civilization has always been in the deep waters." Admiral Zexathara watched as his powerful fleet became surrounded by vessels that outnumbered them 5,000 to 1. The human ships didn't form crude battle lines like most military forces. Instead, they created a perfect sphere around the alien fleet. Each ship was positioned with mathematical precision. "Commander," he said quietly, "how is this possible? Our scouts surveyed this system. We had detailed reports." Commander Veltar was studying her own readings. "Admiral, I think we only saw what they wanted us to see. These ocean structures, some of my deep scans suggest they've been here for thousands of years." The human fleet finished rising from the depths. Each ship was sleek and dark, with smooth curves that looked more grown than built. They moved without making any sound, even in space, and they all carried weapons that Admiral Zexathara couldn't identify. "Dr. Chen," he said, trying to keep his voice steady, "how long have you been watching us?" Her laugh was soft but chilling. "Admiral, we've been watching your species since you first developed spaceflight. We've been watching all the species in this galaxy. We've been deciding which ones deserve to continue existing." Admiral Zexathara felt his crystal body go cold. "What do you mean, deciding? The galactic hegemony has conquered 47 worlds, correct?" Dr. Chen asked. "Tell me, Admiral, what happened to all those species you defeated? Where did they go?" Admiral Zexathara thought about it. Most conquered species were enslaved or relocated to work colonies. But some had simply vanished. His people had always assumed they had died out from disease or despair. "You evacuated them," he whispered. "You saved them." "Some of them," Dr. Chen confirmed. "The ones worth saving. The ones who showed potential for growth. We relocated them to better worlds, far from your reach. The ones who were just as cruel as you. Well, they learned that the galaxy has limits to its patience. The million human ships hung in space like a dark cloud. Admiral Zexathara realized that each one was probably more powerful than his entire fleet combined. Worse, He was beginning to understand that humanity had been manipulating galactic events for centuries. "How many worlds do you control?" he asked. "Every world with significant bodies of water," Dr. Chen replied. "We seeded the oceans and lakes of 10,000 planets over the past 3 millennia. We've been building, watching, and preparing." Admiral Zexithara looked at his fleet of 200 ships, surrounded by 1,000,000 vessels from a civilization that had been hiding in plain sight. His proud hegemony, which had thought itself the master of the galaxy, was just one small player in a game they hadn't even known existed. "What happens now?" he asked. Dr. Chen's voice carried a note of finality. "Now, Admiral, your species and all the others in your hegemony face judgment. We've been watching you for a very long time. We've seen how you treat weaker species. We've seen your cruelty, your greed, your endless wars." The human ships began to move, not toward the alien fleet, but away from Earth. Admiral Zexithara realized they were heading toward every inhabited system in the galaxy. "The time for watching is over," Dr. Chen said. "The time for judgment has begun." News of Earth's revelation spread across the galaxy faster than any message in recorded history. On 12 different homeworlds, emergency meetings were called. Military leaders who had been laughing at the primitive humans just hours before now stared at their screens in absolute terror. On Crystallia, the crystalline Dominion's capital world, High Commander Zarthul watched the broadcasts with growing horror. The images showed Earth's oceans draining away to reveal massive cities and shipyards. The human fleet rising from the depths was larger than every military force in the known galaxy combined. "How did our intelligence fail this badly?" Zarthul demanded from his war council. "We had spy ships watching Earth for 50 years. How did they miss a 1,000,000-ship fleet?" General Kexmar, the head of intelligence, was shaking so hard his crystal body was making musical sounds. "Sir, I think we didn't miss it. I think they made us see exactly what they wanted us to see. Every scan, every report, every observation, they controlled all of it." Meanwhile, Admiral Zexithara found his fleet completely surrounded by the human vessels. The alien ships couldn't move in any direction without hitting a human warship. But the humans weren't attacking. They were just waiting, floating in perfect silence. The silence was worse than any weapon. "Admiral," Commander Veltar whispered, "should we try to break through their formation?" Admiral Zexithara looked at the tactical display. His 200 ships were surrounded by a sphere of human vessels that stretched beyond his sensor's range. Each of his ships was outnumbered by thousands to one. "No," he said quietly. "I don't think they want to destroy us. If they did, we'd already be dead." On the planet Thuros, homeworld of the insectoid hive, Queen Zixara was having an emergency, meeting with her military minds. The insect-like beings buzzed nervously as they watched reports from across the galaxy. "The humans have been among us for thousands of years," the Queen said in her clicking voice. "Every water world we thought was uninhabited, every ocean planet, we dismissed as worthless. They were all watching us." "My Queen," General Tixor buzzed frantically. "If they've been watching us that long, they know everything. Our military plans, our weaknesses, our secret weapons. They know which worlds we've conquered and how we treat our slaves." Queen Zixara felt a chill run through her exoskeleton. The insectoid hive had enslaved 17 different species over the past 500 years. If the humans had been watching and judging, Dr. Chen's voice suddenly echoed across every communication system in the galaxy. Every ship, every planet, every space station received her message simultaneously. "Citizens of the galaxy," she began, her voice calm and clear. "For the past 3,000 years, humanity has been watching your civilizations develop. We have observed your wars, your conquests, and your treatment of weaker species. We have been deciding whether your races deserve to continue existing. On 100 different worlds, billions of beings stopped what they were doing to listen. In the marketplaces of Viridian Prime, four-armed merchants froze in fear. In the crystal gardens of New Crystalia, artists dropped their tools. In the hive cities of Thuros, entire swarms fell silent. Some of your species have shown promise, Dr. Chen continued. You have created art, music, and philosophy. You have shown kindness to your own people and occasionally to others. These qualities give us hope. But others among you have chosen the path of cruelty. You have enslaved entire worlds. You have destroyed civilizations for sport. You have turned conquest into a game and suffering into entertainment. On the capital world of the Metallic Confederation, President Zondar was frantically calling emergency sessions. His people were known for their advanced technology, but also for their complete lack of empathy. They had wiped out 6 different species just to test new weapons. Sir, his advisor whispered, if the humans have been watching us, they know about the extinction tests. They know about the pleasure worlds where we hunt sentient beings for fun. President Zondar's metallic face showed no emotion, but inside he was calculating odds. If humanity had a 1,000,000-ship fleet hidden on Earth alone, how many ships did they have hidden across the galaxy? Dr. Chen's voice continued broadcasting. Every extinct civilization you thought you had destroyed. Every species that mysteriously vanished from their homeworlds. Many of them were evacuated by our forces and relocated to protected systems far from your reach. On Crystalia High, Commander Zarthul felt his entire worldview crashing down. The Forgotten Ones, the 17 species that disappeared over the past 5 centuries. We always assumed they died from disease or despair after we conquered them. The humans saved them, General Kexmar realized. They've been running a secret evacuation program for millennia. The broadcast continued. But now the time for hiding is over. We have watched enough. We have judged enough. Today, every member species of the galactic hegemony will face the consequences of their choices. Across the galaxy, human ships began appearing in orbit around every major world. They didn't come from space. They rose from the oceans, lakes, and seas of each planet. Bodies of water that had seemed natural for millions of years revealed themselves to be human installations. On Viridian Prime, the ocean suddenly drained away to show massive underwater cities. On Thuros, the planet's 3 major seas emptied to reveal shipyards that dwarfed anything the insects had built. On New Crystalia, even the small decorative lakes in the crystal gardens turned out to be human monitoring stations. How long have they been here? Queen Zixara buzzed in panic as she watched human ships rise from every body of water on her planet. The answer came from her oldest advisor, a being so ancient he remembered stories from before the hive's first conquest. My queen, there are legends among the oldest castes. Stories of strange lights beneath the waters, of voices that came from the deep places. We always thought they were myths. Admiral Zexathara, still trapped near Earth, received a direct communication from Dr. Chen. Admiral, you're going to serve as our witness. You're going to watch what happens to civilizations that choose cruelty over kindness. What are you going to do to us? He asked. That depends entirely on what you've done to others, Dr. Chen replied. Every species will be judged based on their actions. Some will be given the chance to change. Others will be relocated to worlds where they can start over. And a few... The transmission paused, and Admiral Zexathara could hear the sound of vast machinery awakening in Earth's depths. A few will discover that the universe has no patience left for unnecessary cruelty. Across the galaxy, 1 trillion beings looked up at their skies and saw human ships blocking out the stars. The oceans that had been peaceful and empty for thousands of years hummed with the power of awakening civilizations. The galaxy held its breath and waited to learn what judgment meant when it came from beings who controlled the waters of 10,000 worlds. The human fleet spread across the galaxy like a dark tide. At every major world, the same scene played out. Human ships rose from hidden ocean bases and formed perfect spheres around each planet. No government could resist. No military could fight back. The humans had too many ships, too much technology, and they knew everything about their enemies. On Viridian Prime, President Colvin of the Trade Federation received humanity's first judgment. The four-armed being sat in his golden palace, surrounded by wealth stolen from 100 conquered worlds. Dr. Chen's image appeared on every screen in his palace. President Colvin, you and your people stand accused of enslaving 42 different species. You have forced billions of beings to work in your mines and factories. You treat sentient life as property to be bought and sold. We were just following galactic law, President Colvin stammered. Conquest is legal. The strong rule the weak. That's how the galaxy has always worked. Not anymore, Dr. Chen replied simply. Outside the palace, human ships had surrounded the planet's capital city, but they weren't firing weapons. Instead, strange beams of light were scanning every building, every street, every person. Within hours, something impossible began happening. The slave markets that had operated for centuries simply vanished. The buildings didn't explode or collapse. They sank into the ground as if the planet itself was swallowing them. The slaves inside were safely transported away before the buildings disappeared. "Where are you taking them?" President Colvin demanded. "To worlds where they can live free," Dr. Chen answered. "Worlds we prepared for them long ago in case this day ever came." The human judgment on Viridian Prime continued for days. Every slave was relocated to a better world. Every corrupt official found themselves stripped of power and transported to prison colonies. The planet's weapons were disabled. Their military bases sunk beneath the surface. But the regular citizens, the shopkeepers, farmers, and workers who had just been trying to live their lives, they were left alone. The humans didn't punish people for simply existing under a bad government. On Crystallia, the situation was different. High Commander Zarthul watched in amazement as human forces began what they called corrections. The crystal beings had been warlike, but they weren't completely evil. They had enslaved other species, but they also had art, music, and philosophy. Dr. Chen appeared to the High Commander personally. "Your people have potential," she said, "but you've chosen the wrong path. We're going to help you find a better one." The humans didn't destroy Crystallia's government. Instead, they carefully removed the most corrupt leaders and replaced them with fair-minded individuals from the crystal population. Libraries full of war propaganda simply vanished, replaced by books about cooperation and peace. "How are you doing this?" High Commander Zarthul asked. "How can you just make buildings disappear and replace them with others?" Dr. Chen smiled. "We've been preparing for this day for 3,000 years. We've had time to perfect our methods. The most shocking judgment came on Thuros, homeworld of the insectoid hive. Queen Zixara had ruled through fear and cruelty for 500 years. Her people had tortured other species for entertainment. They had turned genocide into an art. When Dr. Chen's image appeared before the Queen, her message was short and final. "Your species has chosen to embrace unnecessary cruelty. You have made suffering into a celebration. The galaxy has no place for such behavior." "You can't destroy us." Queen Zixara buzzed frantically. "We have billions of people. They're not all evil." "No," Dr. Chen agreed. "They're not. The innocent among your people are being relocated as we speak. The children, the artists, the philosophers, the ones who spoke against your cruelty, they're being taken to a world where they can build a better society." Queen Zixara watched through her palace windows as human ships carefully extracted certain individuals from the hive cities. They weren't taking everyone, only specific people who had shown kindness or had opposed the hive's worst practices. "What about the rest of us?" the Queen asked. Dr. Chen's expression didn't change. You've had 500 years to choose a different path. You chose cruelty instead. The universe is cleaning house. The sky above Thuros began to change color. The human ships were doing something to the planet's atmosphere. Within hours, the change became clear. They were making the world uninhabitable. For the insectoid species, but only for them. The planet's other life forms, its plants and animals, were completely unaffected. Queen Zixara and her cruel followers found themselves slowly suffocating as the air changed around them. The most vicious members of their species simply fell asleep and never woke up. The planet remained beautiful and alive, but it was no longer suitable for the beings who had turned it into a center of galactic cruelty. Admiral Zexathara watched all of this from his position near Earth. His fleet was still surrounded, still, helpless, but the humans were letting them observe everything that happened. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked Dr. Chen during one of their conversations. "Because your people are next to be judged," she replied, "and I want you to understand what the choices are." "What choices?" "Change or disappear. Those are the only options left in this galaxy." The Crystalline Dominion's judgment was different from the others. Admiral Zexathara's people were warriors, but they had honor codes. They conquered other species, but they didn't torture them for fun. They were cruel, but not completely without mercy. Dr. Chen appeared to Admiral Zexathara with humanity's decision. "Your people will be given a chance to change, but the change must be real, not just words." "What do you mean?" "Every species your people enslaved will be freed and relocated. Your military will be reduced to a defense force only. Your government will be restructured to include representatives from every species in your territory. And you, Admiral, will serve as our ambassador to your people." Admiral Zexathara felt relief flood through his crystal body. "We're not going to be destroyed?" "Not if you prove you can change. But understand this. We'll be watching. If your people return to their old ways, if they start conquering and enslaving again, there won't be a second chance." Across the galaxy, the human judgment continued. Some species were relocated to better worlds. Others were given chances to reform their societies. The worst ones, the ones who had made cruelty into a science, simply vanished from existence. But in every case, the innocent were protected. Children were saved. Artists and philosophers were relocated. Anyone who had tried to speak against their society's cruelty was given a new home. The galaxy was being restructured, not through war or conquest, but through careful, precise intervention by beings who had been watching and planning for millennia. And in the depths of Earth's oceans, humanity's true cities hummed with activity as they coordinated the largest social engineering project in galactic history. 6 months after the day the oceans drained, the galaxy was a completely different place. The galactic hegemony no longer existed. In its place was something that had never been seen before, a truly cooperative galactic civilization where different species worked together instead of fighting each other. Admiral Zexathara stood on the bridge of his flagship, but it was no longer a warship. The humans had converted it into a diplomatic vessel. His crew now included beings from 12 different species, all working together to help planets adjust to the new galactic order. Ambassador Zexathara, his new communications officer, said. She was a young human woman named Lisa Park. "We're receiving a message from the Viridian system. They're requesting help with setting up their new government." Admiral Zexathara, now Ambassador Zexathara, nodded. "Set course for Viridian Prime, and please just call me Zexathara. We're all equals. Here now." The journey to Viridian Prime showed him how much had changed. Where once there had been military checkpoints and slave transport ships, now there were peaceful trade vessels and refugee ships carrying former slaves to their new homes. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now working together. On Viridian Prime, President Colvin was gone. In his place was a council made up of representatives from every species that lived on the planet. The former slaves were now equal citizens. The massive factories that had produced weapons were now making medical equipment and tools for terraforming new worlds. "It's amazing," said Dr. Tamara, a former slave who was now the planet's Minister of Education. "6 months ago, my people were property. Now we're helping to run the government." Zexathara marveled at the change. "How did the humans make this happen so quickly?" Dr. Tamara smiled. "They didn't force it. They just removed the people who were preventing it from happening. Naturally, once the corrupt leaders were gone, once the fear was removed, cooperation turned out to be much easier than conquest." Similar transformations had happened across the galaxy. On New Crystallia, former enemies were now creating art together. Crystal. Beings and the species they had once enslaved were building beautiful sculptures that combined different cultural traditions. On the reformed worlds of the former insectoid hive, the survivors were learning new ways to live. The children and the few adults who had opposed the hive's cruelty were building a peaceful society. They kept the positive aspects of their culture, their amazing engineering skills, and their ability to work together, while abandoning the violence and torture. But the most amazing changes were happening on worlds that hadn't been part of the hegemony at all. Planets that had been hiding in fear for centuries were now revealing themselves. Species that had been driven into exile were returning to their homeworlds. Zexathara received an invitation to visit one of these worlds, a planet called Harmony, where 17 different species lived together in peace. When he arrived, he was greeted by beings he had thought were extinct. "Welcome, Ambassador," said Elder Mordun of the Gentle Ones. His people had supposedly died out 300 years ago when the crystalline dominion had conquered their world. "We're glad you could visit our new home." "But your people were extinct," Zexathara said in amazement. "We thought the plague had killed all of you." Elder Mordun smiled sadly. "There was no plague. Your people were planning to use our world for target practice. The humans evacuated us the night before your fleet arrived. We've been living here ever since, along with others who were extinct." The tour of Harmony amazed Zexathara. 17. Species that had supposedly been destroyed over the centuries were all living together. They had combined their knowledge and skills to create a paradise world. Their cities floated above crystal forests. Their farms grew food that could nourish any species. Their libraries contained the collected wisdom of civilizations that the galaxy thought were lost forever. "How many worlds like this are there?" Zexathara asked. "Hundreds," Elder Mordun replied. "The humans have been saving us for millennia. Every time a species was threatened with extinction, they would quietly evacuate the survivors. They've been building a secret civilization of refugees and exiles." Dr. Chen appeared on Harmony during Zexathara's visit. She looked older now, tired, from the massive effort of restructuring galactic society, but she also looked satisfied. "The hardest part is over," she told Zexathara as they walked through one of Harmony's floating gardens. "Most species have adapted to the new way of doing things. Trade is replacing conquest. Cooperation is replacing competition." "What about the humans?" Zexathara asked. "When will we see your real cities? When will you stop hiding in the oceans?" Dr. Chen smiled. "We're not hiding anymore. We're just comfortable where we are. Earth's surface is still our garden, our place to relax and grow food. But our real homes are in the deep waters of 10,000 worlds." She gestured toward the lake at the center of Harmony's main city. "See that lake? That's not just water. That's one of our monitoring stations. We have beings living down there, watching and protecting this world." Zexathara looked at the peaceful lake with new understanding. "You're everywhere, aren't you? Every world with water has humans living beneath the surface. Every world worth protecting," Dr. Chen confirmed. "We learned long ago that the best way to defend something is to be part of it from the beginning." Their conversation was interrupted by an alert from Zexathara's ship. His communications officer, Lisa Park, appeared on his personal communicator looking excited. "Ambassador, you need to hear this. We're receiving signals from outside the galaxy. It looks like there are other galactic civilizations out there, and they're asking to make contact." Dr. Chen didn't look surprised. "We've been in contact with our neighbors for centuries, but they were waiting to see if this galaxy would grow up enough to join the larger community." "You mean there are other galaxies with civilizations like yours?" "Not like ours," Dr. Chen said. "Every galaxy develops differently, but most of them have learned the same basic truth, that cooperation creates more prosperity than conquest. Your galaxy was one of the last to figure that out." 6 months later, Zexathara stood in the new Galactic Congress, a massive space station built in the neutral zone between former enemy territories. Representatives from hundreds of species sat together, making decisions that would affect trillions of beings. The Congress had one simple rule, written into its founding document in the languages of every member species: harm the innocent, and the oceans will judge you. It wasn't just a rule, it was a promise. Across the galaxy, every world with significant bodies of water hummed quietly with the presence of humanity's watchers. They didn't interfere with daily life, but everyone knew they were there. Children on 1,000 worlds grew up with new bedtime stories. Stories about the deep places where wise beings lived. Stories about protectors who watched from beneath the waves. Stories about how the galaxy had learned to be kind because the waters themselves demanded it. And in the deepest trenches of Earth's oceans, in cities that sparkled with the light of 10,000 suns, humanity continued its ancient work of watching, protecting, and ensuring that the galaxy remained worthy of the stars. The age of conquest was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And the oceans of 10,000 worlds sang quietly with the voices of those who had made it possible.